Right guys, so I just wanted to do a quick anatomical breakdown video of the difference between a hip abductor machine and a hip aeroplane, just because I saw a very reputable biomechanics coach just alluding to the fact that these two exercises are kind of the same thing, or not the same thing, but maybe progressions and regressions of each other rather, just because on both exercises you've got sort of like a flexed hip, which is kind of moving into like abduction and adduction, if you like, on both movements. Now, I just want to highlight the differences and why these movements are not the same, even though the bone is still moving in the same direction on both movements. Now, if we start with a hip abductor machine, you're going to be plonking your bum onto a seat. You're going to be having both hips in a flex position, and you're going to be driving both hips out at the same time, or both femurs out at the same time, should I say. Now, what that's going to do is that's going to create like a contraction that's overcoming and squeezing, if you like. That's going to be like shortening and reducing space at the back of the hip. Now, if you have a hip aeroplane, and also not to mention that that's going to be an open chain movement, so if I just grab the foot actually, you're going to have a foot that's going to be placed on that foot pad, and the tibia is going to be in more of a back position, if you like, relative to the rest of the foot. The foot's going to be more of a plantar flex position, with the tibia relatively back in space, which is a more externally rotated or supinated foot. Now, if you've got a hip aeroplane, you're going to have this foot load bearing, so your full body weight's going to be on this foot, which means your foot's going to be in more of a reduced arch or a pronated or internally rotated foot. You're going to have more internal rotation bias to the tibia. That internal rotation is going to continue all the way up the chain. So the femur is also going to be more biased to internal rotation, and the ilium is going to be biased to internal rotation. The sacrum is going to be tipped more towards this load-bearing side, because your body needs to create what's called a hip shift, which means your pelvis needs to move over this load-bearing foot so that your center of mass stays over this foot so you don't fall over. Now, you don't have any of that on the hip abduction machine. Not only that, if you imagine, we've got this pelvis which is, moved over the top of it in a hip aeroplane, and as you can imagine, this hip is moving down like this. So as you can see, all of the muscles at the back of this hip are going to be opening up, lengthening, yielding. So it's going to be a completely different type of contraction. One contraction is going to be creating more space and creating more length. The other contraction is going to be creating less space and creating more of a squeeze. So hopefully you can see, even though the bones are working in a similar sort of movement plane, that there's vastly different outcomes to both of these exercises. Hope that helps.